What is going on, guys, and welcome to a brand new video. And I've definitely missed you guys. I was on vacation, so I do apologize for the break in uploads. I just didn't have enough time to cover my holiday with videos, but hopefully you guys do enjoy these videos. This weekend I'm going to be uploading a ton of videos to catch up, and there's a lot of things I want to be doing, a lot of new different types of videos that I've never done before, and I definitely want to try those out. So if you guys do enjoy the content, leave a like and leave a comment, as it does help out the channel quite a bit. And today we're going to be breaking down why Alchemist has a 46.5% win rate. Now, this hero is honestly a hero I don't see a whole lot of at all, because this hero is just kind of bad right now. And normally Alchemist is just one of these cheese heroes that you pick at the end. He's not really that cheese, but if it's a really good Alchemist game, he can definitely feel quite strong. But in most situations, Alchemist just gets overpowered by most of the heroes in the current meta. Heroes like Faceless Void, heroes like Troll Warlord. These heroes can put so much work into the Alchemist where there's just not enough damage for him in the tank. Sure, he could definitely sustain a lot with Chemical Rage, but that's pretty much it. He can farm quickly, and he can eventually give his team Aghanim Scepters if it gets late enough. But when it gets that late where you're actually building scepters for your team, you're pretty much kind of lost unless you're being carried by another hero, and it's just not all on the Alchemist train, which ends up happening more often than not. People put all their eggs in one basket when it comes to Alchemist. They feel like this hero is amazing in the late game. I definitely feel like he's strong in the late game because of how much he can farm, and he's always going to be ahead of the next hero if he's decent at farming anyway. But other than that, he's just not a late game threat. His abilities don't do that much in the late game. Minus armor isn't a big deal in the late game with acid spray. Farming won't really matter once you hit all your item timings and you start building scepters. Your stun is pretty much one of the better parts of your kit with Chemical Rage, which is going to be quite important. If you land a big stun and they're not BKB'd, it's going to be very strong in the late game. But overall, this show is just a mid-game timing hero for you guys to be ending the game. Sort of like a Meepo, where you're kind of on a timing. You don't want to take it to 50 minutes, but you also can't really end in 15 minutes. So you're kind of stuck between that 25 to 35 minute mark is definitely where I feel like Alchemist farming well can definitely shine. And overall, this hero is also not being picked because most of the buffs he's been getting has been to corrosive weaponry. It's all been little mini buffs here and there. I think if they buff Acid Spray or Grievel's Greed, he could maybe come back into the meta. If they buff him slightly, he could definitely be picked here and there as more of a situational pick. Right now, I don't even see him as a situational pick. I think he's definitely a D tier carry right now. And even as a mid laner, unless it's like a really free lane, but right now with Brood Mothers, Necrophos, Pucks, like these heroes can just trash you, and you're gonna have to pop Chemical Rage all the time. Not only for farming, you're gonna have to pop it to live in the mid lane. He's just not a strong mid laner. He's the type of hero that wants to stay in lane and just constantly go from jungle to lane. That is the most optimal way you can play Alchemist, and it's where you're gonna get the most farm. But if you're playing against a very aggressive offlane duo that can just kick you out of the jungle and also kick you out of the lane, you're gonna have a really hard time on finding space around the map, and you're gonna have to switch lanes, which is something Alchemist doesn't really like to do. And you don't really gank that well unless you max stun, which is kind of bad, unless you're just that type of player that likes to play very aggressive on the Alchemist. And it can definitely pay off if you know what you're doing and you know your matchups very well. You can definitely take extra points in stun, and for you to be able to get that extra damage going and that extra lockdown, that maybe your support actually does a lot of damage and you're able to set them up and you're able to get some extra free kills. So you definitely need to keep that in mind. Stun is very strong in the lane. Typically, your build on Alchemist stays almost the same. You go for the treads, you go for the soul ring, you get a wand, and then you go for radiance, and then you can go for a blink, and then BKB or AC. It honestly depends what you need. If you need to survive against magic damage, you get a BKB. If you need physical, you get the AC, because this is a strength hero and it is a very low armor hero. And for being a strength hero, he's actually kind of squishy, which is something a lot of players notice all the time, that this hero is a strength hero, but he's so squishy sometimes that you feel like he's made out of paper. So a lot of players will tend to beef him up with bracers. I've seen a lot of players going hard in really difficult games just to get that extra HP. Satanic is really strong. Like, I know you already have Chemical Rage for that extra sustain, but in the late game, Satanic can come in really clutch. When you have that extra attack speed from consuming a moon shard and stuff like that, you're going to be able to right click quite fast, so you're going to be able to get that HP back. And it's just overall very situational item, but it can definitely work on the Alchemist. And then you rotate into items like Mage Slayer or Abyssal. You can get Mage Slayer earlier. You can even get it right after Blink. Mage Slayer is just such a strong item in the current meta. It's practically broken. That item works very well with corrosive weaponry, and it can do a lot of work. So I definitely recommend you guys, if it's a good Mage Slayer game and you're going to get a lot of value from it, you should definitely buy it on Alchemist. I think that could definitely turn the tides on how this hero can actually hit, because they're going to be doing a lot less damage. Harpoon is also a very underrated item on Alchemist. I definitely like Harpoon. You definitely have to build it obviously after Radiance. You could also build it early if you feel like you're going to have enough space to farm and you're not really on that much of a timer because they're not pressuring you so hard. You can get the Echo Saber and go Blink and then Harpoon. You're going to have practically infinite catch for these supports, especially if they can get away with a 4-staff or a Blink. You're able to pull them back in and you're able to do a lot more work with these items. They're definitely very underrated on Alchemist and I highly recommend them. Now I'm going to be breaking down some of the matchups Alchemist is good up against and bad up against. He's typically good up against Templar Assassin, Leshrac, Wraith King, Phantom Lancer, Enigma, and Sven. All these heroes are practically not very popular in the meta other than Leshrac. Enigma is a little bit more popular right now, but he's not being picked obviously in every single game. You have to be an Enigma player. It's not a hero that most players want to be picking. Templar Assassin is kind of like a dead hero, and so is Phantom Lancer. Wraith King is more of a hit or miss in the off lane. He's not being played carry a whole lot, and Sven is just a very situational pick, just like Alchemist. Overall, these heroes, other than Leshrac, you're just kind of not picking it for the game because they're not being picked a whole lot. But the heroes he is bad up against are heroes like Omni Knight, Clockwork, Razor, Batrider, Monkey King, and Nyx Assassin. Again, these heroes are also really not in meta. Omni Knight has always been pretty decent. Clockwork I haven't seen in a really long time. Razor has been nerfed quite a bit, so he's definitely not that strong right now. Batrider is a very dead hero unless you're a specialist. Other than that, I haven't seen a Batrider in like 40 or 50 games. Probably more than that. That hero just doesn't get picked unless you're playing in pro level pubs, and even then it barely gets picked. It has a very low win rate and just overall not a very great hero right now in the current meta for most players. Monkey King is a very strong hero. He's always been kind of a strong hero into the right games. He's not a first pick hero at all, but you can definitely get away with Monkey King right now. It's definitely quite strong, and he does very, very well against Alchemist. And Nyx Assassin, again, is one of these heroes that a lot of pesky support players like to pick. It's definitely not a meta hero, but it is very strong and can do a lot of work with Alchemist. You have to toggle off your Radiance. It can become quite annoying when you're playing up against that hero. He will easily burn your mana pool and do a lot of damage to you and easily break you and pretty much solo kill you. If they're playing core Nyx Assassin, they can definitely kill you. It can become a really big problem for the carry to get soloed by, say, an off lane or a mid lane Nyx Assassin when being played, and it's definitely a very unexpected pick. Hopefully you guys did learn something about Alchemist. I would definitely recommend you guys to not pick this hero unless you are an Alchemist player and understand your matchups completely, and then you can definitely get a lot of value out of it. You also need to keep in mind your team composition. Alchemist is a very greedy hero by nature. You need to hit your timings. He is a very timing based hero. You need to hit that Tread's Radiance timing as quickly as possible, preferably before 15 minutes, because if you get it later than that, you just start slowing the game so much and your team is going to have to be making space for you. Alchemist is not a very aggressive hero, especially pre-Radiance. He doesn't do a whole lot of damage. Sure, he has the stun, he can sustain. Acid Spray is pretty good, but overall, it's hard to keep people in Acid Spray with your stun, so you're not going to be a very effective ganker unless you have a lot of setup from your teammates and there's a lot of stuns on your team. Then you can definitely go for pickoffs like this. Your playstyle will definitely depend on how you are as a player, but also what team you are up against and what team is with you. Definitely don't pick this hero with a lone druid or a very greedy lineup because you're both going to need a lot of time and space. So play it with very active heroes that will make space for you for the first 15 minutes, and then you will be just fine. But if those heroes have a really bad lane and they're heroes that are very greedy, with an Alchemist, that's not a very good combination. You will tend to lose the game unless the enemy team just doesn't recognize that and doesn't pressure you at all. Hopefully you guys learned something about Alchemist. If you guys did, a like would be much appreciated. Leave a comment down below and let me know if you guys are an Alchemist specialist. How is it going for you guys? And if you guys are picking this hero more often than not, or if you're just picking it very, very situationally just to get that extra game in when it's a very free Alchemist game. I'd definitely like to know what you guys think about this hero and what should be changed about Alchemist to be brought back into the meta. I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.